We are just going to do a very quick video today, simply showing a couple different bullet prep, and it is by no means an exhaustive test. It is definitely something where I don't have multiple test groups, but I was out doing some shooting today and thought, well, you know what, I'll load up 32 rounds. I'll do 4 different bullet combinations, and we'll just, see what happens on target. Now, this is a load that is still getting tweaked. It is by no means a perfect load, but it's a good load. And you can see here at 300 yards, these are just boxes. These are bullets straight out of the box. And it's shooting about a half-minute group. So 1.5 inches at 300 yards. It's basically shooting X-ring vertical. I know what it's showing here for the ES, but out of the muzzle, these all ran somewhere in the mid-teens, realistically. Like low teen, high teen. It's kind of all over the board, but they were all somewhere in the teens, so very consistent from batch to batch. But these are just straight out of the box, and you can see they shoot a nice, not quite square, just a little bit tall group. And then what I did is I took the box and then I took straight out of the box and went to the nose ring. And this is the tub nose ring tool. And you can see it's pretty interesting what it did. It definitely shrank the vertical, like really tightened it up. And if I try to kind of put these both here, you'll see out of the box, taller but narrower, right? So 1 inch by 1.5. And then it basically flipped it. So we're at zero point 0.8 for the height and then, almost 1.6 for the width. So the height and the width almost exactly changed. And then there was a little bit of elevation here. Obviously, 10 is a little bit out there. I'm not going to argue flyers or this or that, because then you could say, well, 6 is here or 4, like the reality is these are the 8 shots. This is the group that it printed, and it definitely had more width to it than it did height. So, both of these come with their own inherent dangers. You can make good wind calls and have a wide group that's going to hurt you, or you could make, some mistakes on wind calls, get a little bit of help here, but you might lose some vertical shots. So neither one of these is certainly ideal, but it is interesting to see what the nose ring did to the out of the box, strictly from a vertical standpoint. Then if I come over here, I'll just go ahead and put these two on the same page as we're looking. You can see that I have trimmed and pointed, and I'm going to explain something about these in a second. So trimmed and pointed, and then trimmed and pointed with a nose ring. Now, these are not, I'm going to say these are not what I would call properly trimmed and pointed, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to see what the nose ring did to them. And in all fairness, I was in a bit of a hurry, but I thought it would be an interesting test to do it this way. So these are all trimmed to the shortest bullet. So I just grabbed a bunch of bullets, I measured them up real quick, I trimmed them all to the same length, pointed them all exactly the same for all of these. So all 16 of these bullets, I just trimmed to the same length, I pointed them all the same, and then shot them. So this would be a very rushed way of doing it, and certainly not ideal, but it is, again, interesting to see that on the trimmed and pointed by themselves, it's a little wide and a little tall, 2.75 group size, so just under a minute, which is, certainly not a great group by any means, and pretty square, obviously a little bit wider than taller, but, you know, not horrible in terms of like being a square group. But then it is interesting to see that the nose ring brought it into definitely a tighter square group here. A little bit tighter, saved half an inch overall, still, a little bit under a minute. But it did square up the group from a width and height standpoint just a little bit. So 1.9 and 1.8, almost a perfect square group there. So by no means an exhaustive scientific, study, but it is interesting to see what these did. Now, I will also say these two were shot at the same point of aim. So I shot the box bullets and then went 1.5 minutes over and shot that one. And then the trimmed and pointed ones over here, I actually came down a minute because I knew they would shoot higher and I wanted them all to be on the same plane here. I came down a minute and then shot a point of aim over. I have little dots all over my target. And I shot a dot over here and then went a minute and a half over to the left. So um, normally, if you were to see a target like this, you would see that out of the box are down here, and then the trimmed and pointed ones would be up here a little bit higher. Other than that, not a lot. You can see that if we're looking on the horizontal here, the boxed and the nose rings are almost exactly on the same plane. There is a little bit of difference with these nose ring trimmed and pointed, where we got just a little more elevation on the same point of aim, which is kind of interesting to see that out of the box, not a lot of difference, but over here, it's almost like it kind of piggybacked on the pointing to give it just a little extra vertical. So there's a test. Take it for what it is. I'm not, this is not a test to try to sell you on one process or tool or anything like that. But it does package in out of the box, trimmed, pointed, and the nose ring tool all in one. I'm going to do more tests. I'll keep sharing them as I do them. I try to squeeze these in where I can. It's tough to do one entire test right now, just because I'm getting ready for a couple of big matches. But once I get past some of these bigger matches into the fall time, I'll be doing some much bigger tests with all of this, and it should make for some interesting TV there. But there's your little test for the day. Appreciate everybody watching. You guys have a good one. We'll talk later.